Welcome, friends, to the Museum of Aquarium and Pet History. This one we're going to unpack today is a big one, and it's all about something called instant fish. You're probably wondering, what is instant fish? Well, I'm going to tell you. But before I start, I just want to thank 3 people who made this video possible, because I had a few things unclear in my mind I needed to clarify. So my good friend Joe Fredenzi, I want to thank him. I was on the phone with him for over an hour basically talking about instant fish. Thank you, Joe, and he actually helped me with a lot of different items I needed to clarify. Also, Bobby Ellerman, who is a plethora of knowledge in aquarium and pet history. He actually answered a bunch of my emails on this subject. And of course, my good friend out of Italy, Emiliano Spada, who sent me the instant fish, sent me the one that was by Wham-O. So without further ado, let's talk about
Wham-O brings you instant fish. Instant fish?
Okay, instant fish. All right. Wham-O instant fish. So what is it? Well, first of all, let's talk about Wham-O for a second. Wham-O was a toy manufacturer started in about 1948, I believe. 2 friends from college who, a couple of goofballs that basically had some brilliant ideas, or found these brilliant ideas and made them into incredible marketable toys, made an amazing company. Wham-O, again, had the hula hoop, the Super Ball, the slip and slide, everyone's favorite, and one other one I can't think of off the top of my head, but they had quite a few. They had a huge one. And they started, like I said, in 1948, and they were sold 7 times. In 1982, they were purchased by an investment group. 1994, Mattel bought them. 1997, they became independent, again, from Mattel. In 2006, they were sold for $80 million to an investment company in China. 2009, they were sold to an investment firm, the Angular Group. 2015, somebody acquired the global rights to Wham-O. I don't know what that means, if they own the company or they just bought the rights, not quite sure. 2021, someone became the exclusive licensing agent for Wham-O, and 2023 was their 75th anniversary, and they are still in business today. Believe it or not, still in business. So I want to tell you the history of this according to Wham-O, and then I'm going to tell you the real history. Okay, according to Wham-O, one of the founders went to Africa on basically a mission to try and develop more toys. He was, one of those things where he was traveling to try to see what he could find to make into a Wham-O toy. And he came across this interesting fish in Africa, now called a killifish. And you might wonder, why do they call him a killifish? Do they kill other fish? No, they don't. Kill is a Dutch word for a body of water, predominantly a creek. So that's where the word comes from, but it has nothing to do with them killing other fish, because actually most of them are pretty docile. But what's interesting about these fish is there's about 1,800 different species of killifish, and they're finding more all the time. But they have this unique behavior that they come from these seasonal bodies of water. So every year where they live, the water dries out completely and they die. So they call them then, the killifish people call them annuals, because they live one season, usually 1 year. So these fish will be alive in these small bodies of water. They will grow, mate, they'll lay eggs in the mud. The dry season comes and they die. But the eggs don't die. The eggs go into a diapause. Now, a diapause is basically where it's supposed to be basically a rested development, or a pause in the development of the eggs. But actually the eggs can keep developing, but they'll stop before they hatch, because there has to be a trigger to make the eggs hatch, and that trigger is water. So when it rains, the eggs hatch and the cycle of life starts all over again. The killifish have to mature in a very short period of time. They have to grow, mate, lay eggs. Dry season comes, starts all over again. So he found that and thought, oh my God, I could make this into an instant fish product. where I'll put a little tank in there, a little plastic tank, because killifish don't need a lot of space. That's true. And I'll put a little package of eggs in there. I'll put the food in there. I'll put a magnifying glass in there, and I'll call it Instant Fish. Well, they came out with it, and it was a huge hit. They took it to a toy show. There's some controversy whether it was one in Chicago or one in Florida. It doesn't matter. But they took it to a toy show, and it was just a gigantic hit. They sold millions of dollars of these Instant Fish products when it first came out, okay? So many companies copied them, and I'm going to go over that in a second. But I want to tell you now the true story of how this happened. I mean, sure, Wham-O developed the Instant Fish, the very first one. They were the first one to come out with this educational toy, because it was an educational toy. It wasn't just a toy. It was something that basically, you know, taught kids that, hey, here's the cycle of life. Here's a fish that only lives a year, you know, and actually the eggs can go dormant. And you could take the eggs in a little bag, add water to it, and they're going to hatch out in most cases. That was one of the problems they had. The eggs didn't always hatch, or if they did hatch, the killifish would die suddenly. You know, there's other things like water parameters that they wasn't taken into consideration. Lots of things weren't taken into consideration on this project. But interesting enough, my good friend Joe Verdenzi told me of an article in Aquarium Journal magazine, which was published by the San Francisco Aquarium Society, and this one's in 1963, by Gene Wuschheimer. Excuse me. Gene was the Rosario Licorte of the West Coast. I've said that before. He was a phenomenal fish breeder. And Gene was hired by Wham-O because they had problems with the killifish. And they had heard that Gene was the guy you should hire, because Wham-O is located in Carson, which is in Los Angeles, basically. So they went around, who do we get to help fix this killifish issue? And they said, you need to hire Gene Wuschheimer. So they did. And Gene came and said, look, I don't believe in this, but I will help you in the interest of helping the fish. I will help you out. So he wrote a 2-part series about his whole involvement with this. And the real story is that there was a biologist in Los Angeles who Gene said name wants to remain anonymous. And he took some eggs in a little bag with some peat moss, and he took a few of them to a local tropical fish store that was owned by a friend of his. And he sold them to his friend, and his friend wrote Instant Fish on the bag, you know, $5 each or whatever it was, and put them up by the counter on a little display thing. And they sold like crazy. And word got out all around that, hey, this store has this crazy Instant Fish. And it got to Wham-O, and they went and checked it out. And Gene says in his article that they bought the rights from this biologist, but you can't buy the rights to something that occurs in nature, or a process that occurs in nature. What I think he meant was that, you know, they hired him to set up a place in their warehouse to actually keep and breed killifish, which that's what happened. I believe that's what happened. So they took their warehouse, which I don't know how big it was. I'm going to guess 50 to 100,000 square feet at that time. And they took 20,000 square feet inside the warehouse and made a fish breeding room. And they had all women employees, and they had, I can't remember how many tanks, but it was several hundred tanks, where they bred, I think it was 2 different species of killifish. And they had the eggs and everything else. And this person gave them this knowledge, I'm sure, on how to do this. And kudos to Wham-O for actually taking a space in their warehouse and actually setting up a fish room and breeding the fish so they can have the eggs to make this product. But they had problems. They had some fungus problems. They had some other issues. And apparently, I guess maybe the biologist didn't want to have any more part in this whole affair. So that's when Gene came into the picture, and Gene was going to help him out with that. And I think the biggest problem was they didn't let the eggs develop far enough. The eggs almost had to develop to where you saw the eye of the baby fish in the egg for them to hatch properly. So that was one of the big issues that I think Gene had explained to them. But still, it fell apart. I mean, still, they had too many returns. I heard that one salesman almost lost his job because he sold these to Sears and they couldn't deliver. And whenever you have a hot product that you can't deliver, that's the kiss of death in business. And he almost lost his job over it. The person that made the sea monkeys said that the instant fish craze killed him on selling sea monkeys in the beginning to these big department stores, because they said, oh no, we did the instant fish, we're not doing sea monkeys. So he had to go direct and actually sell mail order and sea monkeys because of instant fish. So that is the story, including Gene's part, that I thought was really interesting. One thing that basically that they said was that the eggs needed 6 weeks to make sure that they were fertile, to make sure that they actually, before you almost put them into this diapause stage, or you know, to make sure that they're basically going to hatch. You know, the eye thing was really important. So the other thing too is there was one good thing that came out of this, and that was that when they were breeding all these, which were, I believe, Cyclonoblis whitei was one of the fish that they bred. They bred 2 or 3 different kinds of killifish, but they had an albino. And that was really cool. And they knew that they had something special, so they started like putting those off to the side and breeding a colony of the albinos of these. So I'm really wondering, and maybe somebody can leave a comment, is the albino Cyclonobis whitei, is it still out there? Is there still a strain of that came from Wham-O, or is that strain died out? So that's going to be an interesting thing. That was one of the successes that they had, but the product itself was a failure. Okay, so let's go on to part 2, to the next one that came out. These 3 that I'm going to show you all came out in 1963, maybe 62, but they lasted not even 2 years. So that's all they had was 2 years. And then the product basically failed. So this was Quickie fish. Quickie fish, sea eggs hatch into beautiful tropical fish, new scientific wonder of nature. This was, 1962, sorry. It came out in 1962, and I believe they were gone. All these 3 companies that I'm going to show you were gone by the end of 63. And this was Glant Scientific out of Brooklyn, New York. Watch Quickie fish develop from eggs to fish. He gives you a little thing in here that basically tells you a little history about the eggs and the diapause, and tells you how to hatch them. And then he gives you a whole different instruction book in here as well. And the instruction book is edited by Rosario Licorti. Rosario is the amazing fish breeder who he's one of the legends in fish keeping. And he was involved with the Quickie fish. Rosario actually was the one that bred Quickie fish for this company. And what's interesting is, you know, Rosario is a really humble guy, and everybody loves this guy, and he's just super welcoming and everything to his fish room. I've only met him one time. I know that people have back on the East Coast. See, I didn't live on the East Coast. I grew up on the West Coast, and I was really little when he was in his heyday. But the one story that Rosario related to Joe Fredenzi was that, you know, he bred, I think it was 5 million eggs. So in the time that he produced eggs for them, he produced 5 million eggs. And they paid him between 1/2 cent and 1 cent per egg. So if you do the math, you've got somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 Rosario made in a little under 2 years. A lot better than his day job. He was a pattern maker and probably paid a lot more money. And Rosario says he has no regrets on doing those eggs for these people because it helped him to improve his fish room. It helped him to basically double his fish room. So that was something that he really didn't have any regrets for. But there is like a little side story that was kind of sad. Rosario, there was the American Killifish Association, okay, which is the largest killifish association in the United States. And Rosario sent in an application for membership. Normally that's not an issue, but in this case, his application went to the board, and 2 members of the board rejected his application because they thought that he had commercialized in a bad way killifish, which I think that's unusual. But So they denied his application because I guess you have to have a 100% vote, or a full vote from the board, I'm guessing, because the other 3 board members voted to have him in the association, but these 2 did not. It turns out that about 5 years later, one of those board members visited Rosario at his house, and they became lifelong friends, and he completely changed his mind. He basically admitted that he had done the wrong thing, and Rosario was not only became a member of the AKA, but became a fellow of the AKA, which is basically the equivalent of a Lifetime Achievement Award. So that story had a happy ending with the American Killifish Association. And if you're interested in Killifish, definitely go check them out, because they are the big Killifish organization, and you could still get Killifish through the mail. Believe it or not, you can get the eggs that are in diapause through the mail from the AKA. So that is Quickie fish. All right. So, not to be left out of the fray is fish in a flash. This is quite interesting and actually quite rare to find one of these. And this one is see fish eggs hatch and see fish and shrimp grow, because this one gave you also brine shrimp eggs. So you can hatch newly hatched brine shrimp to feed the baby killifish. This says approved by Tropical Fish Hobbyist Magazine, the leading magazine in the tropical fish industry. It says that it's authentic. It's endorsed by lecturer, author, and publisher Dr. Herbert R. Axelrod, who states, "The most fun and education I've ever seen in one package." Did I just say that? Okay. Anyways, let me open this up and just show you a little bit about fish in a flash. Notice that this is probably the largest box that has been produced. Now, this is the instruction book. It's quite a large instruction book, basically telling you how to hatch everything out. And in the back, it has the bio from Axelrod, Dr. Herbert R. Axelrod, Tropical Fish Hobbyist Magazine. So it has his mugshot and basically a little bio. Then it has a little thing on Tropical Fish Hobbyist Magazine. And then you've got the little, again, the little small tank. I'm not sure what the wings are for. And you've got all kinds of little stuff. Okay, you've got the special, you've got the super flakes. You've got mineral salts, so special hatching mix, mineral salts, okay. If they're not in your local water supply, you should add these. Well, how would you know? Okay, special hatching mix, shrimp eggs, another book. Ooh, 2 books. So I'm not sure, somewhere here is the eggs. I'm not sure where the eggs are. It must be the special hatching mix. Okay. So we have all these different things here. Then we have a card, consolidated research out of California. Well, that's interesting. Coupon for your magic fish eggs. Oh, you send off to get the eggs. That's interesting. So you buy this first, and then you send this in, and they send the eggs to your house. That's quite unusual. I did not know that. Oh, and here we go. Sears and Roebuck. Dear customer, because of the delicate nature of fish eggs, it's important to have complete scientific control of the eggs during incubation as near hatching time as possible. For this reason, we have not included the fish eggs with your Fish in a Flash kit as described in your instruction booklet. To make sure you have complete satisfaction and enjoy the best results, we have arranged to airmail, upon receipt of the attached coupon, a fresh, healthy, safely packed supply of fish eggs. Boy, I bet that pissed off a lot of people that bought this thing. Because, you know, when you buy something, and I've said this to my crew before in developing products, the last thing you want to do is tell them, hey, you just bought this product, but you need this other product to make it work. So yeah, you just bought this Fish in the Flash, but you can't set it up until you send the coupon to get the eggs, which might take a week or 2. That's not fun. So that was not a fun product, and that's probably why this product is so rare, and you don't see any, because it was not a fun product. Okay, so that is Fish in a Flash. And Axelrod, obviously, even though it says it's by this other company, this was definitely one of Axelrod's companies. Science World Inc. out of New York. definitely. This has got Axelrod all over it. This is definitely one of his companies. And there was an editorial in TFH magazine. I don't know if it's this issue or not. I think it's close to that issue in 1962. Basically, we're talking about fish in a flash. So that is them. All right. So you'd think this would be over. This whole Killifish shenanigans would have died between 62 and 63. But no. Fish in a jiff. Hatch fish in hours. Just add water and a light source. And it even has a space age tank with some killifish. I'm not sure if those are amphicemium, not sure which type those are. And it talks about diapause in this one. A portion of our sales are donated to the Diapause Research Foundation. So I don't even know if they're still around. The diapausefoundation.org, that's interesting. And it's Toy Ops is the name of the company out of Pensacola, Florida. I looked them up, they're not in business anymore. It says ages 8 on, adult supervision required. This is brand new. And I didn't want to open it because I want to show you, it's even got the tags or the little tape. But this was never opened and never used. And I just thought that was cool when I found it. So it's interesting. Now, I want to give you the date. Oh, and you also have to send in for the eggs. And you have to give them $4.95 return postage. Another bad idea. So this was much later. I believe this was what do we got here? Fish in a Jiff, 2010. So we went from 62 to 63, and we didn't have another type of product like this until 2010, quite a few years later, but we did. And a much larger vessel to keep the killifish in. Look at that. I don't know. Oh, that's interesting. It's a little cup that goes in there. They call this space age. Here you've got a nice little picture of some killifish right there. Very nice. You've got some little things that it sits on. You've got a magnifying glass so you can check out the brine shrimp, or you could check out the killies. A little pipette so you could feed the little brine shrimp. Not much of instructions, it's just 2 pages, but it shows you the whole diapause, how the stream dries out and how the eggs basically go in the mud and go into a diapause, or a little bit of a sleep time for them. This is interesting, really interesting product. So that is Fish in a Jiff. And here's your redemption card, and here's a little liquid crystal thermometer. So this one you can actually tell what the temperature is. So that's pretty interesting. And I can't believe that this one came out during that time, what, 14 years ago. So that I'm going to set over here. Okay. All right. So there was another one between 2007 and 2009. It could be a little earlier, a little later. There was Magic Fish by Joyfeel Innotech Company out of China. They were an interesting company. They offered 60 different kinds of killifish. They promised a 72 to 93% hatch rate. And they said that they put 20,000 eggs on the Chinese Shenzhou 7 spacecraft. Okay? I never heard of that. Did you hear about that? 20,000 eggs, killifish eggs, put on a Chinese spaceship, shoot off in the air? I mean, is it because they're eggs and they want to see if they hatch in space? Well, they hatch after you put water on them, after mud, so perhaps they can hatch in space. I don't know, but that's pretty interesting. We had one of those magic fish, and I, again, misplaced the box. But the last one is one that's still up on eBay occasionally. This is another company. This one is from Greenwater Farms out of Thailand, and they had 3 or 4 different kinds of killifish, ages 8 and up. Comes in a little package just like this. I think it was about $12 to $15. And with instructions and everything else. We did try to hatch one of these and it didn't hatch out. So this is one that's still around even today. So it's amazing that this idea won't die. People are so enamored with the fact that killifish have this unique behavior, and not all of them, just a small percentage of them have this, annual diapause, seasonal lifespan phase that they go through. So they've definitely, the marketers of educational toys, we won't say toys, we'll say educational toys, have jumped on this and don't want to let go. So that's that. So did I miss anything? Let me just check my notes really quick. I told about the albino. I think I covered all of it. Again, I want to thank everybody that's really helped me to put this together. It's I did see a talk years ago at the American Killifish Association at their convention, and it was in 2009. I thought it was 2010. And it turns out that Bobby Ellerman was the one who gave the talk on killifish. And I attended the talk, and I remember him talking about how Wham-O had this fish room, and they actually had all these women that bred these fish for them. And I thought that was fascinating. And I contacted the AKA and asked someone there, hey, this convention in Portland, can you tell me who gave the talk on basically the history of killifish? And they couldn't tell me. They couldn't figure that out or go back that far, I don't know what. But I asked Bobby the question if he knew it, and he said, yeah, it was me. So again, thank you, Bobby, for answering the questions. Thank you, my other good two friends, Joe Ferdenzi and Emiliano Spada. Thank you for everything. And again, you guys, I will see you with the weekly ones, and I'll see you next month with a big one. All right, take care.
Wham-O brings you instant fish. Instant fish? Yes, instant fish. In a beautiful plastic Aquarama tank. Everything is there, nothing else needed. Just fill the Aquarama with water, add the magic seeds, and within hours, real living fish. They grow up to 3 inches long in beautiful colors, silver, red, blue, and black. Your very own pets in their very own water wonderland. Watch the miracle of life. They're fun to feed, and just watch them grow. Hurry today to get the most amazing fun ever offered. The Wham-O Instant Fish Set comes with a beautiful wide vision aquarium, magic seeds, and food. You've never seen anything like this. It's unbelievable, but it's true. Sold at all toy, drug, and department stores. The Wham-O Instant Fish. Instant fish.